Welcome to the inn. How you doing? Take care.
I should go.
You know what?
I've wanted to kiss you since the 10th grade. Maybe I'll give up.
Oh, shit. Whoa.
I warned you.
Dad! Dad, stop! You're gonna kill him!
The story begins with Jade, a beautiful, quiet, and academically gifted young woman. From the outside, her life seems almost perfect. But beneath that perfect image, something has always been missing. For years, Jade has lived under the strict protection of her family, especially her father. He loves his daughter deeply, but sometimes that love turns into control. He wants to have a say in everything, from her future and the people she spends time with to the way she lives her life. After everything the family went through in the past, fear has practically become part of their everyday lives. Then there's David. David couldn't be more different from Jade. He's an ordinary, outgoing guy who's well liked by everyone around him. He's also been working since he was young, but there's something about him that almost nobody knows. For years, David has secretly admired Jade. He's seen her from a distance countless times, but he never had the courage to approach her. She didn't even know he existed. To David, Jade was the kind of girl he could never possibly reach. But fate had something else in store for both of them. After Jade graduates from high school, she begins experiencing a feeling she's never really allowed herself to have before. For the first time, she wants to live. She wants to experience the world for herself, away from all the fear, restrictions, and rules that have controlled her life. Then, at one of the parties, Jade and David finally meet. David approaches her and starts a simple, casual conversation. And sometimes, a conversation that seems completely ordinary can end up changing someone's entire life. Jade is immediately drawn to David's confidence and the way he sees things differently. Meanwhile, David can hardly believe what's happening. The girl he's secretly admired for years is suddenly sitting right in front of him, actually talking to him. As time passes, the two begin going out together. Their phone calls become longer, and every moment they spend together gives them a chance to discover something new about each other. For the first time in her life, Jade feels free. She feels like she's finally living her own life instead of following a path someone else created for her. And David finds himself falling for her more deeply than he ever imagined. But there is one major problem. Jade's father begins to notice what's happening. At first, he tries to stay calm. But as Jade and David's relationship grows stronger, so does his fear. In his eyes, David is nowhere near the right person for his daughter. He believes Jade is slowly drifting away from the future he had planned for her. But every time he tries to control their relationship, something unexpected happens. Instead of pushing them apart, his attempts only bring Jade and David closer. Because love has a strange habit of doing exactly that. The harder people try to keep two people apart, the more determined they can become to hold on to each other. As time goes by, Jade and David's relationship grows from simple attraction into genuine love. They begin to see a future together, believing that maybe, for once, everything is finally falling into place. But just as they start thinking their lives are taking a better turn, Jade's father makes the first move in what will become a battle against their relationship. And this time, he isn't planning to fight with words alone. His decisions are about to change everyone's lives. For the first time, Jade will have to choose between following her heart and keeping her family's approval. And on the very night she believes her relationship has finally become something safe and real, her father makes a sudden decision. If it succeeds, it could destroy their relationship before their love even gets the chance to truly begin. Because sometimes, the hardest thing isn't having people reject the person you love. It's realizing that the person who's supposed to protect you is the first one standing in your way. As Jade and David's relationship becomes more serious, everything in Jade's life begins to change. For the first time in years, she feels genuinely happy. Not the kind of happiness that comes from good grades, achievements, or making other people proud. It's the kind of happiness you feel when you finally meet someone who sees you for who you really are, someone who loves you without conditions. For Jade, David has become that person. And David is living through the happiest period of his life as well. The girl he once only dreamed of talking to has now become an important part of his everyday life. But the stronger their love becomes, the more convinced Jade's father is that the relationship has to end. To him, this isn't simply a case of two young people falling in love. He feels like his daughter is slowly pulling away from him. She's beginning to make her own decisions, and that's something he finds extremely difficult to accept. So he starts trying to separate them. At first, he uses words. Then comes pressure. And eventually, he begins making direct attempts to stop Jade and David from seeing each other. But his plan has the opposite effect. Every obstacle only makes Jade more determined to stay with David. And every time her father puts more pressure on her, she feels like she's losing another piece of her freedom. In the middle of all this conflict, Jade begins learning more about David's life. She discovers that he's nothing like the irresponsible young man her father believes him to be. David actually works hard, helps support his family, and has real dreams and ambitions of his own. And learning the truth about him only makes Jade fall even deeper in love. But fate has even more complications in store for them. One night, a massive fire breaks out in a house nearby. Without hesitation, David puts himself in danger to rescue her father trapped inside. Suddenly, he becomes a hero in the eyes of many people. But even that isn't enough to change Jade's father's opinion of him. The truth is, he was never judging David with reason. He was judging him through fear. Fear of losing his daughter. Fear that she might choose a completely different path from the one he had planned for her. As time passes, the confrontations become more intense. Jade starts getting into constant arguments with her family, something she never imagined herself doing. The quiet, obedient girl they once knew is suddenly willing to stand up to everyone just to protect the person she loves. At the same time, David begins feeling responsible for everything that's happening. He sees the tension inside Jade's home. He witnesses the arguments and conflicts that seem to happen because of his presence. And for the first time, he starts questioning himself. Is he really making Jade happy? Or is being with him causing her to lose her relationship with her family? Before he can find an answer, something unexpected happens. Jade discovers an old secret involving her father, a secret he has kept hidden from her for years. And suddenly, everything begins to make sense. She learns that much of her father's fear and controlling behavior comes from an old wound that he never truly recovered from. But instead of fixing things, the secret only makes everything more complicated. For the first time, Jade begins to feel that her father hasn't been completely honest with her. She realizes that for years, she may have been living inside a world controlled by fear. And now, the tension reaches its breaking point. There's a father who loves his daughter so much that his protection has become suffocating. There's a daughter who desperately wants the freedom to live her own life. And there's a young man who's willing to fight for the woman he loves, even though he's beginning to grow exhausted from the endless battle surrounding their relationship. Then, in a moment of anger and pain, everything finally explodes. All the words that had been buried for years come pouring out at once. The arguments are no longer just arguments. They turn into real decisions that could bring everything to an end. Jade finds herself completely torn between two worlds. On one side is her family, on the other is David. And both sides are demanding that she choose. But how can anyone choose between their heart and their family? And can a love that began with so much strength really survive everything that's coming its way? Just when David thinks his biggest battle is still against Jade's father, fate delivers a blow that he never saw coming. Something happens that makes him seriously consider walking away from Jade for good. After all the arguments, pressure, and emotional turmoil, Jade finds herself lost for the first time in her life. She's caught between two impossible choices. She can't bring herself to leave David, but she also can't simply ignore the anger of her family, especially her father. He had always been the hero in her eyes. But now, Jade is starting to see him differently. She begins to understand that much of his fear was never really about David. It came from his own past, from things he had lost before, and from experiences that had left him so afraid of losing his daughter that fear eventually took control of his entire life. But no matter what the reason was, the result remained the same. He was slowly losing his daughter. And every day, Jade was pulling further away from him. David, meanwhile, is fighting a completely different kind of battle. He loves Jade more than he ever thought possible, but he can see the problems his presence has brought into her life. He sees the tension at home. He sees the constant arguments. And that's the last thing he ever wanted for her. To David, love isn't supposed to be selfish. More than anything, he wants Jade to be happy, even if that happiness doesn't include him. And for the first time, he considers a decision he never thought he'd be capable of making. Maybe the only way to protect Jade is to walk away and disappear from her life completely. When Jade realizes that David is actually starting to distance himself from her, she feels as if the ground has disappeared beneath her feet. She had always believed her father's opposition was their biggest problem. But now, she could lose David himself. So Jade decides to fight back in her own way. She tries to reach David. She tries to make him understand that none of this is his fault, and that she's the one choosing to stay with him. But things only become more complicated. At the same time, Jade's father is finally forced to confront himself. For the first time, he begins to see just how much damage his fear has caused, and how his attempts to protect his daughter have sometimes suffocated her instead. Slowly, he begins to face the truth he'd spent years refusing to accept. Jade has grown up. And no matter how hard he tries, he can't live her life for her. One of the most important moments of the movie finally arrives. The long-awaited confrontation isn't really between David and Jade's father. It's between fear and love. After a long series of misunderstandings and wrong decisions, things finally begin to become clear. For the first time, Jade knows exactly what she wants. not what her family wants for her, not what everyone else thinks is best. She chooses to follow what her own heart truly believes in. David, meanwhile, finally realizes that running away isn't the answer. If what he feels for Jade is real, then he has to fight for their relationship instead of giving up the moment things become difficult. Slowly, the walls that had been built between them begin to come down. One by one, the things they were too afraid to say finally come out. The feelings they've kept buried for so long are finally brought into the open. And for the first time in a long while, Jade and David feel like they've found their way back to each other. But Jade's father still has one final decision to make, and it's probably the hardest one of his life. He chooses to let his daughter make her own choice, even if it's not the choice he wanted her to make. Because real love isn't about controlling your children. It's about trusting them. In the end, David and Jade find their way back to each other. Not because all their problems have magically disappeared, and not because their lives have suddenly become perfect. They choose each other, and they choose to continue the journey together after finally understanding what real love actually means. Love isn't just about beautiful feelings, it's about trust, sacrifice, and courage. The movie ends with a powerful message. Sometimes, the greatest enemy of love isn't hatred, it's fear. Fear of losing someone, fear of change, fear of the future. And only when a person is willing to face those fears can they truly learn how to love. Because some love stories don't survive simply because the circumstances were easy. They survive because two people refuse to give up and choose to fight for each other even when it feels like the entire world is standing against them. And now, I want to hear from you. If you were in Jade's position, would you listen to your family and walk away from the person you love? Or would you fight for your relationship, no matter what the consequences might be? Do you think love alone is enough to make a relationship work? Or does it also need trust and acceptance from the family? Let me know what you think in the comments. And who do you think was more right, Jade or her father? I'll be waiting to hear your opinion. And don't forget to like the video, share it with others, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.